I guess we're on to sleep apnea, I would imagine, and I understand it's kind of like a done
I
deal.
would suspect that it will be very rare for drivers from here on out to ever be tested and or treated for sleep apnea unless they truly want to be.
So many hours of work into this. It seems almost criminal that it's not making it to the general eye of the certified medical examiners.
Those were two of the voices speaking up during the May 20 meeting of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's Medical Review Board, which took up the apparently quote-unquote done deal of a revised section of the FMCSA's official handbook for the fine folks who perform DOT physicals all around the country. The section, in this case, that dealt with the sleep apnea condition. I'm Todd Dills, your host for this June 4 edition of the Overdrive Radio podcast, and as I reported at the time of the Medical Review Board meeting just a couple of weeks ago now, handbook drafters had made pains in that section to remove a detailed set of screening recommendations that the Medical Review Board had originally come up with in 2016, when FMCSA was considering pursuing rulemaking around the condition. Those recommendations were then in a draft update to the official medical examiner's handbook that came to light about a year ago, but had yet to be officially published as the agency worked on finalizing an update with the board in an advisory capacity. Handbook drafters as of the May 20 meeting had cut that out, however, with this latest draft, and also had inserted language from a bulletin issued to examiners years ago that made it abundantly clear that there was no regulation that required sleep apnea driver screening, referrals for testing, or treatment. Board member Michael Kelly worried over that addition in particular.
Yeah, I think it's necessary to make a comment about the sleep apnea. The second paragraph of that of this draft, it says the FMCSA do not include requirements, and that's the paragraph. This is a unique statement in my mind that isn't included in any of the other guidance in this document. It almost singles out the controversies on obstructive sleep apnea, and I find it's interesting that the political process has had so much influence on a medical problem.
Yet Larry Miner, longtime FMCSA Associated Administrator for Policy, I believe, was quick to point out that the statement around what he calls here OSA, which stands for obstructive sleep apnea, that the statement wasn't new to DOT registered medical examiners, as I suggested earlier.
That it was in the OSA bulletin that the agency put out, and we are in the process of updating the bulletin. So that really isn't a new statement that we're calling out the fact that there's nothing in the FMCSRs that says you need to screen each and every single driver that comes in for OSA, and we don't have any regulatory criteria that says if you see specific things, you must send them out for an OSA test. There is nothing in the regulations, there never has been, and we did have that statement in the OSA bulletin that was released in 2015. Well, from the agency perspective, we're just very sensitive to this whole topic of OSA because for whatever reason, even though there's no clear, compelling data, for whatever reason, out of everything that could be wrong with the driver medically, it's the OSA thing that just has become almost nuclear, that it just goes right to the top of the list. Out of everything that could be wrong, it's OSA all the time, every channel you turn to, and we're not quite sure how to do anything without causing all kinds of commotion, and we're still not clear why it's OSA more so than anything else.
Kelly's concerns, though, were ultimately echoed in degrees by more or less every single Medical Review Board member in attendance. Specifically, his contention that,
and this statement here essentially eliminates the ability for the medical examiners to get any testing for obstructive sleep apnea, even though you could argue that they have the right to do that. This eliminates that entirely.
As Truckers for a Cause Sleep Apnea Support Group co-founder and longtime driver Bob Stanton put it recently, the Medical Review Board seems to have forgotten what Congress mandated through Public Law 113-45. Namely, that FMCSA must go through public notice and comment rulemaking in order to issue any further guidance on the condition when it comes to required or recommended screening, testing, and treatment guidelines for CDL holders. Dr. Kelly went further, though, expressing disappointment over what he predicted would be the reality if this handbook draft was made final. His statement of that disappointment, well, sounded to a lot of truckers in the audience quite differently than the disappointment he wished to convey. You heard it at the top, but here it is again.
I would suspect that it will be very rare for drivers from here on out to ever be tested and or treated for sleep apnea unless they truly want to be.
That, as one owner-operator commenting at Overdrive's Facebook page put it, is exactly as it should be. Look, no one can deny the seriousness of the sleep apnea condition, not only for daily alertness, but long-time health prospects when it goes untreated, and or uncured, as it were. I've heard no shortage of stories from individual truckers who simply lost weight and found themselves in short order no longer in need of treatment for the condition, given apnea incidents became so infrequent as to be within a normal or mild range, common for a lot of us. So, whatever happens with this handbook, or with FMCSA's future possible further attention to the condition through rulemaking, all the old advice from folks like Bob Stanton and many others still applies. If you feel you may have an apnea issue, take it up with your personal doctor before you're due for your MedCert renewal. If you need it, effectively treating it could add years to your life in the long run. We got more today. We're going to hear from S2 Transport hotshot small fleet owner Scott Sabatini about a new venture of his, a dispatch service that comes along in the context of more and more owner-operators moving to such services for an assist with spot negotiations. Before I share some of the relevant results from our recent compensation surveying, though, here's a quick word from Overdrive Radio's sponsor.
First Guard provides commercial truck insurance to leased owner-operators done right, as we've done for more than 80 years. We provide physical damage and non-trucking. Many companies make you pay up to 6 months of insurance premiums up front, but not First Guard. We bill monthly, so you get quality insurance without needing to pay a lot of cash up front. Go to firstguard.com. That's 1stguard.com. First Guard. We speak trucker. Let's talk.
Scott Sabatini. I'm a partner of S2 Transport, Inc., based out of Toledo, Ohio. It's a hotshot company. Currently, we're running 4 trucks, all of them being 3,500 Dodge Rams with 35+5 dovetail gooseneck trailers. Our last truck, number 4, that we added is our pride and joy right now. It's a 2020 4,500 Dodge Ram. It was a cabin chassis purchase that we had a DOT sleeper mounted to the what would you call that, to the chassis, and it's got the auxiliary fuel tank, diamond plate, catwalk, 5th wheel, and he's running a 2020 Big Tex trailer with a Conestoga setup on there. All right, we have 2 flatbeds and 2 Conestogas. And all trucks are running over the road right now, doing very well.
That Conestoga setup, Scott, tell me about that. Because is that something that you engineered yourself, if my memory is correct?
We had to put the plans together. We contracted a company called the Tarp Stop. I'm sorry. Yep. They're based out of Perrysburg, Ohio.
That's right.
They have facilities in Taylor, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Indiana as well. So great guys. They did a lot of work. They asked every question, didn't tighten a bolt until, all the specs were met. Really proud of those guys for putting this together for us. Now, that was the first one. The second one was a no-brainer. We went a little bit taller to not have any restrictions on the freight we could carry. Lesson learned with the first one.
Okay.
But we're looking at probably dressing the other 2 out as well. Now, I will tell you that some of the freight has been limited or restricted due to the height of the Conestogas, because they have to be able to slide back and forth and operate. So, there's competition with, the 53-foot Conestogas for weight, and it's more of a specialty thing. But with the trailers we have, there's only 5-foot ramps, and those ramps are kind of on a tougher pitch for certain vehicles to get up and down.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So you almost need a longer ramp, but we're looking at that right now. Actually, we're flirting with the idea of switching over to PJ trailers. They have ramps that actually slide into the trailer bed themselves instead of having the monster ramps that flip.
Yeah.
So that's something we're looking at, and we're talking to several people that are using them now to see if it'll handle the weight that we're doing. And the first version, our learning curve is 8'7" interior height that we're at, and the second one is 9'10" interior. So our decks are only 30 inches from the ground. So we could have gone all the way up to that, 13.6 limit, but the wind is the wind is a big factor with these trucks, because we're not hauling the big weight that the 53s are pulling. So we have to be careful with that wind, and then the lighter weight that we're carrying, because you'll change lanes before you realize it. So you got to be careful.
S2 Transport co-owner Scott Sabatini and I were on the horn for a couple of reasons. One was to talk about the Ram 4500 sleeper build you heard him mention there, and keep an eye on our YouTube channel's Custom Rigs playlist and overdriveonline.com for more about that. The other reason we were talking, though, is that Sabatini's in the process of responding to a bevy of bad experiences with the independent dispatch providers S2 had in its infancy a few years back. Responding, that is, by going out on his own to do that work himself with a new service he's calling S2 Logistics. As I said earlier, use of dispatching services by independents with their own authority is in fact growing. In the 3 years since we last surveyed that portion of Overdrive's audience, when 16% of owner-operators were using an independent dispatcher, the percentage has grown by a full fourth to 1 in every 5 owner-operators employing a dispatcher. Part of that might be explained by the large number of new owner-operator businesses with authority who've jumped into the spot market in the last year. Whatever the case, though, Sabatini and S2 Logistics have a variety of motivations of their own.
It's just dispatching for right now, Todd.
Yeah.
There's enough brokers out there, and we have very, very dear friends of ours that are brokers. So using those relationships, using our combined experience, I have a general manager named Dan. He's based out of Boston. He is setting up the dispatchers. We've already set up our business plan. I'm not throwing anybody other than the bus, but it took us a very long time in the business, and we had to go through quite a few dispatch services to get to where we're at now, due to conflict of interest and with our day-to-day employment and in availability, time availability.
Right.
So now we're with the great dispatch team for the hotshots. So I took all of the information, the successes, the failures we've dealt with these other services, and I put them together with actually somebody who used to work for one of the dispatch services we had. I watched this guy beat his head off the wall, wanting to do better and better and better, but he wasn't getting any support from the company he worked for. So yeah, I always told myself this guy's a great guy, and if I ever have an opportunity, I'm going to bring him on with us. So when we hit our anniversary date, Steve reminded me that we had this plan.
The Steve Scott's referring to there is Steve Libertor, co-owner with him of S2 and a longtime trucking insurance agent regular Overdrive readers will recall from prior insurance-related coverage. He's currently with Kincaid Insurance Group out of Ohio.
And I said, well, if you have a second, I'd like to send you this matrix that I've been working on all winter. and he liked it. So we moved forward, and I brought on a general manager, Dan, and we have been laying all of the brick and mortar. We do have a few trucks already. They're doing very well. One of the things that we do have, with all these brokers we have, Todd, guys that we've worked with for 25 plus years, we have direct relationships with these guys. So we're going to get called for coverage before these loads are posted to any board. And that's why we're trying to build the volume so we can help satisfy these dedicated brokers, and at the same time make these small fleet owner operators successful. One of the pluses that we did when we first built the company, and when I originally came into this industry, I was a dispatcher long time ago, and I remember the workload and the stress that comes along with it. So we actually limit our dispatchers to 7 trucks apiece. That is it. Right. 7 trucks is all that dispatcher is going to be responsible for, and that will help him be more meticulous and, dedicated to those trucks. A more personable approach, versus a spreadsheet.
How does the fee structure work for an independent coming to work with you guys with the dispatching service?
Well, we have a bunch of different platforms that we offer. We have an 8% platform, and that is we're do the logistics coordinating, the fleet monitoring, hours of service compliance, booking the loads, rate negotiations, broker carrier account setups, preferred carrier and dedicated lanes available, 24-hour carrier support, administrative services, back office management.
Yeah, okay, wow.
Secure document processing. Yeah, it's a lot. And then if we add 2% more, make it 10%, then we'll take care of all of the paperwork. Meaning, the driver completes a load, the dispatch service gave him the rate con. Now he sends his rate con and his delivery receipt to his factoring company. Well, I think the driver needs to be focused on getting to the next pickup and bringing in that revenue. So for that 2%, as to logistics, we'll take that responsibility on. So now the carrier is at 10%. Now we can look at this a completely different way. If a fleet owner has 5 trucks and he wants, as to logistics, to dispatch all 5 of those trucks, the 8% now becomes a 6%. So 6% will do all the dispatching. 8% for that guy, 8% for the guy with 5 trucks is now the 6% plus the 2% back office work, all the factoring paperwork, keeping track of the bill of lading, all that paperwork, all the paperwork that a driver really doesn't need to focus on. The other thing that we're bringing to this, and this is in the works, we're not really sure how. Right now, we just want to help these carriers get started. So, as you know, with Steve, we have an incredible resource for insurance. Everything, all trucking insurance requirements, independent contractor insurance requirements, non-trucking insurance, occupational accidental insurance, physical damage, the safety and compliance. Right now, instead of the broker calling a driver or maybe having to download different apps for tracking and what have you, we will have access to that carrier's ELD. So we'll be able to monitor, we'll be able to plot ETAs and what have you, availability in advance. Right. We don't have to bother the fleet owner all the time. We don't have to bother the truck driver. Last thing we want him to do is to be on the phone and not paying attention to the road. So we can take over that responsibility as well. Now, I can't help you. I mean, I can train you, and I can do, a mock audit on your organization to prepare you for a DOT audit or a new entry audit or whatever you need. But I can't be there and do it for you, but I can give you the tools and teach you how to be successful yourself. So that's one of the things. I'm not really promoting that.
Have you done mock auditing as part of your work in the past?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. When I've built now 2 very big companies in the Detroit metropolitan area here. So one of the things that I'm finding with these guys too, and I'm not trying to correct anybody. If you think this is the correct way to do it, maybe you might want to ask somebody else's opinion. But I'm watching a lot of these small fleets pay their company drivers on a 1099 with, that fine line between a contractor and an employee. I just really want these guys, because when you go through the entry audit and they look at your payroll and you're paying on the 1099, but you're telling the guy where to go, what time to start, and it's your equipment, he's an employee. And I don't want to see these small guys get crushed by, these guidelines. So it's in their best interest to reach out to an accountant or an attorney in the transportation industry and ask those questions.
Right.
Nobody wants to pay employer taxes, but if you want to be successful, you have to do everything the right way and by the book.
Yeah.
They might just take a little bit longer, but you'll get there if you do it right.
These are subjects, of course, we've covered well before. When the state tax compliance departments and the IRS come calling about those 1099 drivers, depending on the jurisdiction you're in, it could well be a hefty price tag you're looking at. Not to mention workers' comp auditors, which Sabatini did mention too, and unemployment compensation rules as well.
With the logistics, so we can do flatbed, reefer, and dry van, and power only. And we have a page. Anybody can contact us like via LinkedIn if that's how they have it. We haven't really subscribed to any other social media platform as of yet, but if they, you'll have our contact information if they see it that way, or our LinkedIn is just S2 transport. I'm sorry, link. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Logistics Inc. But they can find us either way. Transport is on LinkedIn. Logistics is on LinkedIn. I just thought it'd be a good idea, Todd. We're not trying to get rich. We're just trying to help these guys and save them from getting taken advantage of. That's been our motto since we started. That's the model we built this company on. That's the model that we're building, S2 Logistics on. We really pride ourselves, on integrity and, operating with excellence. It's one of those, at the end of the day, how do you feel about yourself? Can you cheat these people and sleep? So
sure,
there's too much of that going on. Yeah, too much. So we try to be a refuge and a safe place for drivers to come and have a good quality of life.
Again, that's S2 Logistics and hotshot hauler S2 Transport. Find them on LinkedIn and or via links in the show notes to the post that houses this podcast at overdriveonline.com. And it wouldn't be a serious discussion with a small fleet owner these days without mention of the ABC test out in California, and in some forums on the national level, about the floated notion of a vehicle miles traveled tax and other potential pressures on small businesses, would it? Here's how Sabatini started in response to a question about the potential net effect of the ABC test, possibly when it comes to the dispatch service's business-to-business relationships with its clients.
We have a vetting process for the logistics.
Yeah.
So, if we'll help everybody, but it might be a couple weeks before we can actually start dispatching your truck, because we're going to want to vet your entire operation. We want to make sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and you're in a good position to actually be on the road. So we have that service is automatic. That service is automatic. We're going to go through. We build a profile for the carrier. We list all accommodations that the drivers have, even if the carrier isn't hazmat endorsed, but that driver actually spent the time and money to get hazmat. We list that. We build value in the companies, and we create a very nice profile for these guys. So I think with the ABC in California, I think that's going to hinder a lot of people, and they're going to be afraid to play with California. I'm like you. I'm waiting to see what Congress is going to do. Yeah. The final word. I'm also watching this mile tax thing that's being entertained again.
Yeah.
We'll see what Buttigieg can push. We'll see. I mean, we pay a lot, for supplying for keeping the country going. It seems like we get the whip We get that sugar cane. We get that cane pull across our backs more than any other industry. It's impossible. A lot of restrictions.
A big thanks to Sabatini for his time and to you for listening. Overdrive Radio is a production of Overdrive, the voice of the American trucker. It's edited and produced by myself, Todd Dills, with no small amount of support from Overdrive Extra contributor and Muller trucking hauler Paul Marhofer, Overdrive editorial director Max Heine, social media coordinator Holly Young, and news editor Matt Cole. And though owner-op Steve Johnson might well disagree with the application of the label,
but I'm not king of the road. I'm not a super trucker. I'm not an outlaw. Don't title me a professional either.
As an adverb, I still like it. Until next time, keep it pro out there, everybody. We'll see you next week.